Well, today we have a fun one. It's just a little check-in that we can use with our teams because we want everybody to be running at their level best and participating and be a high-value team member. And sometimes we don't really know how, to kind of check in on the team members and just see how is everybody doing as a team member. Not in the sense of how are you doing spiritually or like that is important. But the question that we want to answer today is, am I a good team member? Am I somebody who is participating on the right level, adding the right value, being helpful, or am I somebody that is kind of subtracting from the dynamics of the team and how can I make it better?
Right.
Because bad team members doesn't mean somebody who's just got a bad attitude and is crazy to work with. Sometimes it's just something very simple, like how prepared are you for your level of responsibility? So that's what we want to go over today.
Right. And this is a little bit different perspective because the truth is, if I ask any of you guys about your team, you'll tell me I have the best team in the world. And you hear that over and over.
It's
we
true.
have just the absolute best team.
Yes, we do.
But we do, yeah. But we're going to look at it from the other perspective. As a team member, are you the best, right?
Yeah.
Because there's always room to
That's
add
right.
more,
Yeah.
right?
And
Yeah.
I think this is something that we can use in our teams. We can pass it around with the people that have teams, and these are the questions that everyone can ask themselves to kind of evaluate themselves, because every one of us can grow and do better and learn more. So the first question that I want to ask, as that you want to put to yourself, is, what is it that I am responsible for on this team? What is my job? What is my role? Sometimes team members aren't contributing the way that we want them to because they're actually not clear what responsibility that they're carrying. And a lot of times that happens if either we've added people and we assume that they know where we're at as a team, or we've started something new and it hasn't been clearly communicated. So if we ask people, what is it that you do on this team, and they can't define it, then that's maybe somewhere where we can bring some clarity.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's a couple aspects to that as well. One of the things is, what do I see that I could do?
Right.
Who could I be on this
Right,
team?
yeah.
What value can I add to the team? And then what actually am I doing? Because I noticed that one thing, for a leader, from a leader perspective, the thing that we're just looking for is there somebody, right, that could do this major thing?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I've heard testimonies and stories of people who became so valuable on the team, well, they end up being a leader, right?
Right.
By bringing something to the table
Yeah.
that the team really needs that nobody else is bringing. Maybe there's a big problem. There's a lot of teams that have a big, what would you say, maybe not a problem, but something that we can't do, we can't go there, we can't accomplish this. It's just who we are.
Limitations.
Yeah, whatever. But if you got the right team member who comes along and says, you know what, we could do that.
That's
I
right.
could do that. I can add this.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really good. And then, like what Becky's saying, is the idea, like, what do I do? Am I really clear about the responsibilities that have been given to me?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think even in defining it really helps bring, it just shows to where the focus is at. So for example, if someone says, yeah, I'm on the host team, versus somebody who says, I'm here to welcome people.
Right.
Right? It's technically the same job, but it's coming from a different perspective. I'm here to show up on time and be at the door and greet people, versus I'm actually here to make people feel welcomed and included. So just seeing what people see about their own role will help us be able to bring greater clarity, sometimes greater vision, greater excitement. So that's a really good question for team members to ask themselves. Don't tell me what I'm here to do. Find out from them, what do they think that I'm actually here on the team to do, and it'll help you see where they see. The second question is a good one, is, am I easy to work with? Which is that? Some people are a little disillusional or delusional, like they don't really have but I think really, if you really think about it, if you're easy to work with or if you're a little bit prickly.
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, I don't know, because you kind of wonder, people that are prickly, you wonder if they really know that.
And I think sometimes people need to know, even if they, like, even just to say, you know what, you're really awesome, but it's really hard to share a new idea, or it's really hard to, talk to you about something that's bothering me. If we want our teams to really grow in our relationships with each other, there's a level of honesty that has to happen. And the whole understanding behind this is we're not doing this to show, where you suck and where your flaws are. The whole point is, how can we make it so that our team is stronger, our team is more effective, we're better, that we're on the same page, we're heading in the same direction? Because a lot of times there's little uncomfortable things that happen because of interpersonal issues, attitudes, the way people respond to things, and it totally does shut down the team from moving ahead.
Yeah. Oh,
and everybody's afraid of moving forward because so-and-so can be a little bit touchy about this, or I can't talk to so-and-so about that. Do we want that to be the thing that actually stops their team from moving ahead? Do we want that to be the thing that limits our effectiveness? And so if there is somebody on the team that's hard to talk to, maybe they get emotional, maybe they get, a little hot under the collar very easily, then we have to figure out a way as leaders to actually bring it up and solve it. And so my suggestion would be, number one, teach on it first, right? Teach on it as a broad, hey, everybody, here's how we talk to each other. Here's how we don't, get all inflamed. Here's how we keep our cool. And then if an instance comes up, then you have to deal with that instance in particular, right?
Right.
And then sometimes then you get the opportunity to actually deal with that person. But if we're never giving people an opportunity to be aware, am I easy to work with, then, we just keep going along and we keep running into the same confrontation.
And we can also ask ourselves the same thing in another way, is what is it that triggers me?
Yes.
What is it that just makes me mad?
Yeah. What makes me shut down my other team members? What makes me upset? What makes me
Yeah, and why? Why is that? Like, what is it? And then the bigger question is, how can it be fixed, right?
Yes, that's
because I know you get around people, right, and you know what triggers them. Well, Mom calls it pushing buttons, right?
Yes. You know how to push buttons.
You know how to push the right buttons, just like that.
He preached a whole sermon about it on Sunday a couple of weeks ago.
That's right, too. I did, didn't I?
You pushed her buttons the whole time. It was very funny.
But it's, and that's all in good fun. There's a lot of people, they can't have any fun with that.
Yeah.
You push my button, man, I am on.
You're done.
Yeah.
Nuclear. That's right.
So, and then people are walking around on eggshells.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
because they and what you've actually done is you've shut off an area of that could be developed or corrected or anything else. We're just not going there.
Yeah, and people will actually learn they have that power and they'll use it to their advantage. And then what ends up happening is you have somebody who begins to manipulate the team dynamics because they know people are afraid to speak up. And then that's a whole other problem. So you want to deal with that in a healthy way. You want everybody to understand too that if there is an interpersonal issue, if you do have some kind of a, whatever, you're just really easily angry or whatever the issue is, that it's not going to be allowed to fester for long, that it's something you actually have to deal with.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, ready for another question?
I'm
Here it is.
ready.
Can I solve problems or do I make problems? Do I solve problems or do I make problems? Are you the person that comes into the team and you go, I need help with this, I don't know what's going on, blah, 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 or I didn't prepare this thing and I'm not ready to go, or, that person, right? Or am I the person that actually comes in with solutions? A lot of times the people that make problems on the team, they've made problems because they were unprepared, they didn't do their due diligence, they didn't do their preparation, they didn't read the messages, they didn't follow along with the communication, and they come in and they're confused and they're lost, and now they're a problem that the rest of the team has to help solve. So it's a good question. Do you make problems or do you solve problems?
Yeah, and because it can shut the whole team down. That's so true, Becky. And I think too that making problems or solving problems, to be aware of that, because the thing is, we make excuses for ourselves, and it's just so easy for us. I can be the problem, but I'm going to blame it on you, right?
Right.
And so I think that's another area where it would be good to have input from other people.
That's right.
And I think the team leader has a big responsibility there. If this, just in the little things, if someone's always late, I mean, you need to address that or whatever. But there's also those nuances, like you're talking about, what happens in the team's functioning, and then you bring more of a problem than you're solving. And the leader needs to be able to address that too and be aware of it. And also, a huge thing is that the other team members are not only affected by the problem that this one is causing, but they're greatly affected by the way that the team leader deals with it.
Yes.
And so a lot of people will say that you're a good leader or you're not a good leader based just on that, on how you're dealing with people
That's true.
that are a problem in the
Yeah.
team. And if you're just ignoring it, they'll think that you're not a leader.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're not, because you're not
Yeah.
leading, right?
Well, especially if the problem is a particular person. You know, like we just said, good to bring teaching on, you know, just so everybody understands. But if it is actually a particular person, then you actually have to address that person, because if you try to address it in a large overview, and everybody knows who you're talking about, everybody knows what the problem is,
totally, yeah.
but you're not being bold enough to address it. And sometimes they even know it, but because you're not actually confronting it, they still feel like they can get away with it, you know?
Right.
And it's you know, it's a lot of times it's actually not malice, but people actually feel that they're justified in how they feel and how they're, you know, behaving. And so we need to bring correction so that there's health there, so that people can understand how to move ahead in a healthy way. And we also model how to deal with problems that way too. You know, there is the principle in Matthew, you know, how you're supposed to deal with conflict and stuff like that in the church. There's a reason why at the end you actually have to confront somebody
Yeah.
eventually, you know. So
Yeah.
we don't want to delay that, especially if it is a specific person or a specific issue. Don't put it off. It's not going to get better just because more time has passed.
And it's healthy for everybody.
That's right.
It really is. It's needful. I remember a number of years ago, we had a person join us in the ministry here, had a real heart for the ministry, but didn't like certain things that I was doing and the way I dealt with things. And not from a place of experience or knowledge, but just a, you know, like perceived what I was doing was not good leadership. And so we had a staff meeting one morning, and after staff meeting, I thought everything was fine, went away, and then this story started. This person started talking to everybody about how Al wasn't dealing with this or wasn't doing that or anything like so. So then there you are, right? Like you're kind of, you've got to do something. You can't just leave that, because what happens is that is going to quickly,
Poison.
it's going to bring rot and poison into the whole ministry. So I just, as soon as I heard about it, I said, there will be another staff meeting in 10 minutes. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh. And so now Al, the guy who's not dealing with anything, suddenly he's right in your face. And so to bring understanding that there's a reason that we deal with things the way we deal with them. Has a lot to do with culture, has a lot to do with giving people time.
Yeah.
You know, some people want, if there's somebody causing a problem, they want to see the axe fall, you know, like we want to see that person kicked out or something like that, you know.
But they want grace.
Yeah,
Give me grace.
that's right, yeah. And so, and I've learned something over the years. There's the typical principle of you praise in public and you correct in private, right? And that goes for a certain distance. Yeah, okay, I agree with that. But if it's a misdemeanor that's been committed in public, you need to deal with it in public. And so, and that's another thing that people are watching for as a leader. Are you dealing with this or whatever? You know, a big example would be sin in the church. Somebody's sinning or whatever, and everybody knows it, and you're not doing anything about it, and right? And they're going to really like, people will leave, you know, over that. So it's really important to be very clear yourself, like exactly what it is that you expect of people, and then to deal with those problems in a way that they don't have to happen again. And that turned that whole thing around. And that person never like totally understood after that. But and I think it was kind of a wake-up call, because it was dealt with very strongly. And then, okay, now they've got it, right? So, I mean, in love, like you say, you know, you're not hurting people, but you do have to bring very clear. And a lot of times people just don't know. They think, they're, like you say, they think they're doing what's right. They think they're doing the best.
So it's good to bring clarity. Okay, so here's another question people can ask themselves. It's kind of similar, but not, is do I create more work for others? So it's not the same as do I make problems, but sometimes we end up creating more work for others because we do a sloppy job, it has to get done again, or we are too slow, or we didn't manage our schedules properly, and so now we're creating more work for other people, which is a different dynamic of creating problems. So the question is, do I create more work for others because I'm disorganized, because I'm not communicating properly, I'm not going through the right channels? Is my involvement in the team making more work for other people? If the answer is yes, then adjust, right?
Right.
Take your responsibility, make sure you're getting your job done in the right way. And I love the dynamic, for example, with a lot of our teams here is when your area of responsibility is done and they're freed up, then they're looking for ways to actually serve and come alongside and help. It's not a problem if people need help. The problem is if you're the one who's always not organized, so other people have to help you,
right.
then that's an issue.
Yeah.
So we want to correct that in our teams.
And I think it's important too to understand that your job description is everything.
Yeah.
Right.
You have your specifics and then everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because we've had that, well, that's not my job. Oh, yeah, it is.
It's
if
true.
you're part of this team, you're part of this ministry, it's your job. It's all of our job.
Yeah.
But I think, too, another way that people add burden to the team is by coming along and saying, well, what about this? What about that? This needs to be done. That needs to be done. It's like coming home and mom says, the roof needs to be fixed. Well, I need a new washing machine. Well,
Right.
and a whole pile of stuff, right? It's easy for us to find things that
Right.
need to be done. And if you've got that member on your team that's like always pointing out stuff that needs to be done, but they're not the one doing it, right? Then that's adding work. It's adding a burden that you can't fix.
That's right. Yeah. So don't be that team member.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last question we have for team members to ask themselves is, can I keep my cool and my peace? Can I keep my emotions under control? And we're not just talking about what we talked about, like anger. Stress can be very high pressure, right?
Right.
Can you keep your peace under stress? Can you still communicate with other team members? Or do you just shut down? Or do you just get, like burst into tears or all of those things, which every once in a while we all have those moments and it's okay. But are you a person who struggles with that on a consistent basis? Do you have a hard time keeping your emotions in a place of peace? Because if you do, then that's something that we want our team members to work on.
Right.
You want to be able to keep your peace, maintain your peace, no matter how big the pressure, how stressful the situation, how intense the process. If you can keep your peace, then you can actually solve the problem. Because when your emotions go up, your ability to reason goes down, and your ability to actually solve the problem is limited. So as a team member, you want to be somebody who knows how to keep their cool, keep their calm, deal with your emotions after the fact.
Right.
But in the middle of it, you got to be able to go for it.
Yeah, that's a real important part of maturity, isn't it, really, to be able to keep a steady keel. And it does have a big effect on the team. And there are those people that are just so emotional about everything. And we'd really like them to just tone it down a bit.
Yeah.
Like bring that under control.
Yes.
Not only the sad emotions or the frustrated emotions, but sometimes
Over the top
over the top. And you're like,
this is the best day ever. Like, how about you sit down on your chair and do your job? It's true.
Exactly. So an even keel is a part of maturity and a part of
that's
good
right.
leadership, right?
Yeah.
So we appreciate us being able to build, all of us together, building that kind of a culture. Because people we'll find that a person can come into the team and they can be all over the place emotionally. But after a while, they will settle out because they will kind of, what do you say, assimilate into the culture of the team.
Yeah.
And so it's
right.
good to talk about those things.
Yeah, so these are good questions for your team members to ask themselves and just to kind of keep, health and movement going on, because we want to be the best member of the best team in order to do the most amazing thing for the kingdom of God.
So you could ask one of these or all of them at your next staff meeting. Just a good thing to reflect on and get people thinking, because we do want our teams to grow.
Yeah.